Hey everybody, welcome back to the second live stream that we're doing this year in wonderful 2021. I am Sean Rhodes, the Chief Systems Architect here at Bulletproof Selling, author of Bulletproof Selling, a guide to systemizing sales for the battlefield of business. Here at this Bulletproof Selling live stream, we believe that hope is not a business or a sales strategy, and we are here to help everybody listening to replace that hope with the systems that top performers use to get consistently better results. And this live stream series that we do really shares insights from the top trainers, the top speakers, the top sales leaders in the world out there managing field sales teams. And my commitment is that at the end of every episode, you can leave with a system that no matter the size of your business or the size of your sales team, you can use to implement to get consistently better results as well. Now, joining us today, very excited, one of our very first guests is Meridith Elliott Powell. And I am jealous of Meridith for a variety of reasons. Top one being that she gets to live in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina, a place that I lived in for many years. It's close to my heart. The second reason that I'm jealous of Meridith is that she has cracked the code on systems and processes for salespeople. And we're definitely going to dive into how she got into that game and how she does it. But Meridith, welcome to the show, first off.
And thank you. I'm excited. I'd
love for you to share with our viewers and our oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I said I'm excited to be here.
Oh, cool. Well, give us a little bit about your background, because just mentioning that you're a world-traveled speaker, that you've consulted for some of the largest companies, that's saying one thing, but I know folks are going to be interested in the journey that you took to get here. So how did Meridith become Meridith Elliott Powell?
Well, here is the world traveler in her home in Asheville, North Carolina, where I typically spend the majority of my time right now since the age of COVID. But you are right. Before March of 2020, I used to get to travel all over the world doing speaking engagements. But I have sort of a crazy path of how I got here. I was not that kid who grew up and knew exactly who she wanted to be and exactly what career path I was going to follow. I sort of made it through college by the skin of my teeth, and then got into the travel and tourism industry. I started working in public relations and travel and tourism. Left there and went into the healthcare arena, building referral networks for doctors, and wound up in banking after that. Now that sounds like a crazy path, but what I really learned was I like to enter businesses when they're going through times of chaos. I got into travel and tourism right after a hurricane had devastated a tourist area. I got into healthcare right when Medicare and Medicaid huge cutbacks were being made and revenue and care was being really changed. And then I got into banking when heavy regulation was coming in. My area of expertise, what I found, was really balancing how do you design sales strategies, motivate people, and manage the bottom line. So it's really more from a sales perspective, but really a business growth perspective, that you can't think of any single one of those areas as an isolated piece. And then around 40 years old, which I'll just tell you right now, I am well on the backside of 40, but around the age of 40, I decided what a great age if I was ever going to go out on my own, because I was old enough to be taken seriously, but young enough that I could still convince someone to hire me if I didn't quite make it. And I started my business. I'm a business strategist by training. I just really started writing strategy for companies. Had a lot of luck. People said, "Did you know you could speak?" And I had no idea. One thing led to another, and 2008 happened. Kind of a bummer time for a lot of people. But again, I like chaos. I like challenge. I like struggle. So 2008, I wrote my first book, and the rest is history. Here I am today.
I love it. And then the thing that impressed me most about you, because you and I had gotten to meet at a couple of National Speakers Association events. You even traveled down to Tampa, Florida one time to talk to us down here. And you are one of the few people that actually sees sales as something that can live outside of your head. In that, I know that you're pursuing a lot of different people, and there's no way that you can keep track of the next step of any of those accounts, because there's just so many of them, right? Because you're interested in serving more people. So talk to me a little bit about when you began to realize for yourself that getting all the systems and processes and the outreach outside of your head was really the way that you were going to find more success.
Yeah, it really started with this idea that I hated to sell.
Mm.
Really, I grew up, I'm old enough that I grew up that my mother raised me to be polite, but to be pushy or to ask for anything or to even talk about money was just not something that girls did. And so I
Mm.
entered the working world needing to figure out how to make a living, and everybody wanted me to sell. And I would try all the sales strategies that the gurus gave us, like upselling, cross selling, the art of the close, and they just didn't work for me. And I thought, well, one, I have to put food on the table. And two, I need to figure out how to do this. So I started thinking about if I was going to master sales, then I would need to start to build my own systems and processes. And really, where I got my first idea was I was working in banking. And ironically, I was in charge of building our sales culture because I was good at teaching myself to sell, but we were struggling to get others to sell. And we hired all these gurus and everything, but everybody in the bank was bucking the idea of selling. No matter how good the training was, they didn't want to do it. And one day after training, I came downstairs and looked at the teller line. And the teller line was covered in those little feet for the March of Dimes, donate $1 and you could put your name on the foot. And I thought, why do these tellers not want to sell banking services, but they'll tell everybody and their brother they have to give them $1 for the March of Dimes? And it hit me. It was because we were teaching selling like we were doing something to people and benefiting ourselves. And when I asked people to donate for the March of Dimes, I felt like I was helping people. And so for me, my systems and processes, that was my wake-up call, was that when I built systems and processes, I needed to start with a holistic understanding of why this is good for the customer, why it's good for the organization, and why it's good for me as an individual. Because when you sell, everybody wins. It is the best thing you can do for your customer. It's the best thing you can do to protect your job, and it's the best thing you can do to grow your organization.
And that's unique in the world of sales, especially for people like you when you first started out that were afraid of selling because you don't want to be perceived as the sleazy salesperson. You don't want to be perceived as the one interrupting somebody to try to give them something that they don't want or need. So how do you go about strategizing? Because you're the business strategist and the salesperson. How do you go about strategizing? What is the piece of help or the value that I can offer to any given prospect that I'm pursuing right now in a way that allows me to show up saying, here, I'm open hands, right? It's not fists, buy from me or else. It's open hands. Let me offer you something that can help. How do you go about developing that in your mind?
Okay, what a great question. And I hope everybody's listening because, Sean, you just asked the most important question. I just got off a call this morning, and my client said the magic words to me. They said, "Thank you. You have so much relevant information we can use." That's when I know I nailed it. But how I come up with this idea of I know I'm going to add value is I start every single year thinking about a system or a process. This is where I start. Every single year, January is survey month, where I send surveys out to my existing customers with no more than 3 questions. And those questions are, tell me what you're focused on for 2021. What's the biggest challenge that you dealt with in 2020? And if you're going to accomplish your goals in 2021, what's the one thing you need to make that happen? And when I get that information back, I just learn my target market's biggest pain points. And once I understand their biggest pain points, I may not change my products or services, but I now know I need to change my language around them. Because the only reason people buy from me or buy from you or buy from anybody is because they believe you can solve their problem. So if you're starting your sales process without truly understanding what the problem is, you're going to struggle to sell. And what the problem was in 2020 is not the same problem in 2021.
Yeah, and the biggest problem that we ran into in my own sales team and in all the clients that we coach is they usually will show up knowing that this is a widget manufacturing business or whatever it is. They have basic information, but then their job is to discover what the pain point is of the person that can likely buy their product or service. And that doesn't seem to me to be a value-added conversation. Like, why would I take the time out of my busy day to tell you what my problems are if you can't show up giving me some special insight, like you said, and that comes from in your process, the surveys that you launch. And so you're also a big believer in the idea of omni-channel communication, omni-channel prospecting, in that you're not just blasting emails to people and hoping for a ridiculously low response rate. So talk to me about what you've shared with salespeople and what you do in your own business that allows you to capture the attention of these people, decision makers across a wide variety of industries that are incredibly busy, but yet may not answer emails, or they may not pick up the phone all the time. How do you figure out what the right cadence is and what methods you should be using to reach out to these folks?
Yeah, I think the thing that is interesting about that is, number one, I really subscribe to the philosophy that just because people don't answer my email doesn't mean they didn't see it. So when we talk about omni-channel, what I'm trying to do is be visible. And so I use what is known as a drip campaign, which is probably my most powerful system. While everybody else was probably celebrating the holidays, I was kind of holed up in my office for 2 weeks, deciding on the 150 people that I'm going to focus on, that I'm going to drip on for the next year. And that means that that's my time over the holidays to really do the heavy lifting. I get the conference, I get the contact information, I get the dates of the event, I get the email, I get the cell phone, I get the office phone, I get the their social media connections. And then once I have that information, I set up a drip campaign for the following year, meaning that in January, they're going to get a certain message from me. In February, they're going to get a different message from me. In March, they're going to get another message from me. And to your point, it is omni-channel. Sometimes it's email. Sometimes I go totally old-fashioned and I send them something in the mail. Sometimes I invite them to something like we're doing, right now. And sometimes I actually pick up the phone and make a phone call. But it is mapped out what I'm going to do every month. And I do that purposely because once the year starts, I'm so busy, I don't have time to think. So I need, coming through my customer relationship management system every day, I need my program to tell me who to call on and what to do. Am I making a phone call? Am I sending them a video? What am I doing? But my point is, I'm just staying visible with those people all year long.
And you're in touch with a lot of salespeople from a lot of industries. So talk to me a little bit, and with our viewers and listeners, how you saw the world of sales change from the frontline perspective in 2020. What happened to those folks that might have been selling the same way for 20 or 30 years and suddenly it just wasn't working anymore?
Yeah, talk about cold water on your face. I mean, everybody really got a wake-up call, and there were a couple of challenges that I saw. Number one is, gone for salespeople were the traditional ways that we prospected. Unlike you and I, Sean, not a lot of our clients really work globally, in the sense that a lot of them are entrenched in at least the regions that they sell in. So they can get on a plane, or they can drive 4 or 5 hours, or they can go to the local Rotary Club and interact with somebody, or they're going to conferences and interacting at a trade show. Well, all of a sudden, all of that was gone. And all of a sudden, they were forced to use this technology that had been there forever. But there was a lot of resistance to that. So that was problem number one, that all of a sudden you had to learn to go virtual. And it didn't just mean that I was going to call you up and say, hey, Sean, are you ready to buy my product or service? I had to figure out how to build connection, how to build relationship. And that led to challenge number two. Marketing and sales have always had a huge chasm between them. Marketing has done their thing, sales has done their thing, but you have to understand, in a virtual world, you better build your reputation first. Buyers are 65% of the way through the buying cycle before they ever interact with a salesperson, which means that I'm Googling you. I'm solving my own problems. So if you don't have articles out there, you don't have videos out there, you don't have those types of things out there, then you're not who I'm turning to. And the last piece, I'd say, the biggest challenge that I saw was people just weren't relevant. Again, they walked into 2020 trying to sell the same stuff they'd sold in 2019, and they didn't realize that the problems that their customers were facing were very different. I just want to tell you a quick story, because that whole idea of relevancy is so important to me. I mean, if people take one thing from this interview, I want them to take this idea of start every year by interviewing your customers. Just talk to them. Tell me what's going on and listen. But I've got a book coming out in about a month called Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage. And it's all about how to really make it in an uncertain environment. And I interviewed companies. And one of my favorite companies I interviewed was Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble was started in the early 1800s by two men who married sisters. One sold candles and the other sold soap. And they competed for animal fat. So their future father-in-law said, boys, quit competing and start a company. And Procter & Gamble was born. Well, the first product that they were going to brand under Procter & Gamble was soap. Now, I don't care what you sell out there. There is nothing more of a commodity than soap. How do you differentiate yourself if you sell soap? Enter Procter & Gamble. They lived by this creed of listening to customers to differentiate themselves. And true to form, they went out and they talked to people about soap. And they learned that people liked soap, people wanted to buy soap, but people were frustrated that every time you used soap, you would lather up and it would slip out of your hands and you couldn't find it in the bottom of the bathtub. So they invented ivory soap, the soap that floats. They simply injected it with air, solving their customers' problem. And by the end of the 1800s, they were $1 million company.
Interesting. So they looked at the market. So how can we help something that might be a commodity? How do we make it more applicable, more usable by our customer base, and then get out there and actually share how it works? And so I know for a lot of us, our entire sales process is that education of sharing how we're different, how we can solve a problem better, faster. So what did you see salespeople do in 2020, the ones that were successful in capitalizing on those changes? What were they doing that their peers weren't doing that allowed them to find success?
Yeah, they bought in and immediately understood that people buy from people who understand them, not from people they understand. I really want to clarify that. The difference is that the people who are successful in sales, that were successful in 2020, really worked hard to understand their customers, what they were going through, the challenges they were facing, and then brought solutions to those problems. The ones who were not successful were spending so much time trying to explain why they were the right salesperson or the right company to use. Customers don't buy from you because they understand your company. It doesn't matter if they know your tagline. It doesn't matter if they saw your fancy ad. What matters is, do they feel understood by you? The other thing I think that successful salespeople did in 2020 is that they stayed in the game. Customers have a lot on their plate. So, I'm so passionate that the sale happens in the follow-up. It's the most misused part of the sales process, in my opinion. We're good at prospecting. We're good at the sales conversation. We do all the heavy lifting and then we just let it drop. But here's what happened in 2020. I called on you, Sean. You and I had this awesome conversation. You really wanted to buy my product. And then you turned around and regulation happened in your state, and now you had to close your business. Now you're going to need to furlough 20 of your employees, and oh crud, your mother got COVID. Now, all of a sudden, buying from me is just not your biggest issue. And so if I'm not staying in touch, if I'm not following up, then, then I'm going to blow the deal. And I feel like so much business is given away because salespeople don't follow up. And if there ever was a year you had to follow up, it was 2020.
And we heard from so many people in our own industry, Meridith, and I know a lot of salespeople just subscribed to this, especially those that were solopreneurs or entrepreneurs and weren't, they didn't have a sales manager saying how many deals did you close? What does your pipeline look like? People that were responsible for all of it. I know a lot of them just said, I'm not even going to reach out to anybody because it's too stressful right now. All of my buyers are very busy dealing with COVID, dealing with working from home. It's just not the right time to sell. And obviously you and I don't subscribe to that. And a lot of salespeople that were successful didn't subscribe to that either. So for those folks that decided to sit most of the year out, what did they need to begin doing in 2021 to begin regaining that visibility that it might have taken them a decade or more to build, that they had going for them? They had that flywheel effect going for them. It shut down. What are the first couple of things that we need to do to really get a good start into 2021 if we really decided we were going to be dark of the fair version of 2020.
Yeah, it breaks my heart to think that people decided to sit it out, because I really hated the term essential worker, because I really felt like anybody
Right.
who holds a job is essential. I mean, we're so intertwined, right? I mean, you can say that the person delivering a pizza is not as essential as a nurse, and I get that, but the point is that nurse at some point is going to want to order a pizza. I mean, we're a delicate ecosystem where we all support each other. But I think as salespeople, what we do is solve problems. That's what we do. We're trying to help businesses stay open and be successful. So that's the first thing you need to do, is realize you're important, because without you and without your products and services, businesses can't make it. And if you don't believe that, then you really need to go sell something else. If you're not that passionate about your product or service, you need to move on and do something else. Once you've sold yourself and convinced yourself, then you just need to really start to reach out with empathy. You really need to reach out. People remember who showed up in the middle of a crisis. Another real quick story, years ago, again, I live in the mountains. Whoever would have thought we would have had a flood in the mountains? But my husband's office got completely flooded out after a hurricane had hit the coast and tornadoes came up to the mountains. And it completely wiped the dental practice out. I mean, the entire community was wiped out. And we're down there every day digging through pictures and photos and dental records and trying to figure out how we're going to put our life back together. And every day, this insurance agent would show up in a truck filled with water and sandwiches, and he'd come through at about 11:30. And he would just give away water and give away sandwiches. Now, he wasn't pushing insurance on us, because who wanted to buy insurance right then? Nobody. But within like 60 days, all of us had moved our relationships to him.
Oh.
Why? Because he showed up in the middle of a crisis. So you need to show up. You need to be there. You need to listen. You need to care.
And the biggest piece I think you mentioned was that he wasn't trying to push insurance. But he was still figuring out a way to get in front of the people that he could serve that might be potential clients. He wasn't going into communities where nobody owned homes trying to sell homeowners insurance. He was targeting at least his customer base or his prospect base. And so if we're showing up still in a time of crisis, a lot of people are coming out of 2020, they're still financially wrecked, their businesses are still trying to recover, or they're hanging on by a thread. What are some ways that we can look at our prospect base and start to ask ourselves, what prospect base need right now that may not be my product or service today, but that at least allows me to begin opening the door? Sandwiches in the case of your insurance salesman. How do we begin doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. That's such a great question too, because even if I look at my own clients, I've really got them segmented right now.
Right.
I work a lot in the restaurant industry. Now, the restaurant industry has been decimated, gotten back up on its feet, been decimated again. I work a lot in the healthcare space. That's a space that's on fire and is doing well, probably better than they want to be. Doing. So, what I'm offering and selling to the restaurant industry is different than what I am offering to the healthcare industry. And how I'm deciding what that is again, I'm going back in and I'm asking questions. I'm trying to figure out, in the restaurant industry, most of them are just trying to figure out how to keep their head above water, how to keep morale where it needs to be.
Right.
How do they manage, based on the fact that if we've level set the business, if we've got it to a point from a financial perspective, we can get in business, what are some ways we can differentiate what we're doing and find alternative streams of revenue? That's how I'm helping out. In the healthcare industry, we're trying to figure out how to handle too much business. How do we, find enough and keep employees and retain employees? How do we keep culture going in an environment where people are stressed out, burned out, and fearful? So it's about looking across your market and thinking, I am not going into the restaurant industry with a hard sell at all right now.
Right. Buy my talk, buy my consulting. This doesn't work. Yeah.
It doesn't work. And it doesn't feel good to me. I mean, I want to be doing work that feels good. So looking across those industries and treating them very differently. I do want to dissect a little bit though, because you really hit on something so important. You're talking about that insurance agent going into the right target market. When we got flooded out, my husband was the only person in there with insurance. So you're looking at about 50 or 60 businesses where nobody had an insurance policy. Now, how smart was that insurance agent to show up every day? Because what better time to realize you need insurance than when you didn't have it at the most vital point? These were people who were all of a sudden going to be open to life insurance, going to be open to long-term care insurance, certainly going to be open to homeowners and business interruption insurance, flood insurance. He targeted the right business, but he did it in a way that mattered. We needed to know that people cared right then. Mm-hmm. And that was the void he filled.
And what do you feel like is going to be the delineator between successful and unsuccessful salespeople in this new era that we're stepping into? People use the word new normal. I'm not sure there's ever been an old normal, but moving into 2021, what are you seeing is going to be the things that the salespeople need to begin doing? A couple of real tactical ideas that people can take away from this that they might not have been doing before that'll really prepare them for a great 2021 coming up.
Yeah, they need to realize that content positions the sale. So they really need to become masters of building their own reputations in the marketplace. So you need to be writing articles, shooting videos, doing podcasts, doing things that position you as the thought leader that has the resources and the information that that customers can turn to when they need to solve a problem. Again, they're going to Google, and if they don't find you, they're not going to turn to you. The second thing is that you need to be relevant. You really, really do need to be relevant. You need to understand that as we flow through 2021, think about how different the beginning of 2021 is going to be as compared to the end of 2021. I mean, all depending on this vaccine. I mean, as we move through summer, we don't even know what it's going to look like now, but we do know that things are going to be different. So if you're not paying attention to what's going on with your, with your customers, then you're not going to be relevant in the marketplace. The other is you need to get out in front. We're sitting here. I was just working with a friend of mine who hasn't even started his sales process yet, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're at January 6th right now. You've already lost a week, which tells me by the time you do anything, it's probably going to be January 14th, and 2 weeks are behind you. So I told him, I said, go put these things together, and I want you and I to talk on Monday. And he's like, Monday? I said, yeah, because if I wait any longer, you're going to lose 2 weeks in your sales system. So it's going to be the people who come out of the gate strong and are proactive. And then I would be remiss if saying the salespeople that are going to win are going to be the ones with the follow-up system. It's everything in the environment.
And so of the things that of the four that you mentioned, which are great, people should be using all of them. If we could only execute one, what do you think that one might be?
That one is your follow-up system.
Okay, so let's start there, because I promise a system for everybody on this. So in Bulletproof Selling, which is going to be released probably the end of this month in January, we talk about the thing that trims hope from our strategy, from our sales strategy. It's this acronym TRIM. TRIM. And so any system involves that acronym, especially as it evolves to sales. So let's start with T, which is trigger. We have to know when the system is going to come into play. And so if I'm going to be forming follow-up, and it could be a very basic follow-up system. I know you and I manage complex follow-up streams inside of our CRMs, but I'm just starting from scratch here, Meridith. I'm a brand new salesperson. I'm just getting into the market. I need a follow-up system. How do I know when to bring my follow-up system into play? Does it happen when I meet somebody at a virtual networking event? Does it happen when I research them on the internet? When should I start following up?
Yeah, so another great question. Follow up immediately with everybody you ever interact with. So let's break down all the different people that you talked about. Suppose that that you and I actually met at a live networking event in February of last year. I am not going. You said that sounds great, Meridith. Let's have lunch sometime. I am not going to allow you to follow up with me to set lunch. I'm going to put that in my
You're arena. Taking control. Gotcha.
I'm going to control that piece. So let's assume that you and I decided to have lunch in March and COVID hit. So we're not only going to not have lunch, but you're at that point going to tell me, Meridith, my business is on fire. We're insane here. I need to not meet for, a while. Can you just get back with me later? I'm going to say, absolutely, Sean, not a problem. In fact, you don't even worry about following up with me. I'm going to take responsibility of being in touch with you. So I'll swing back, see if we have some time to meet. And if not, I'll just send you some articles and some videos, some things that I think would be of value. So immediately from that point, I'm starting to follow up. But I even follow up. You look into my drip campaign. I have people that I'm following up with that I've never met this morning. In fact, I had a sales call this morning with a woman that I have been following up with for 2 years. She's based out of, well, I guess that's irrelevant. But anyway, I had been following up, and she came to me through another connection, and they had set up a Zoom call this morning. And I said, it's so nice to finally put a name with a face. And she laughed. She said, yes, I've been getting messages from you for the last 2 years. But here's my point about that. She might have responded once or twice. I don't know. But the point is, she knows of me. She knows about me. And the moment that my other client introduced me, she was all in because she was familiar with my work. Just right before the holidays, I decided to pick up the telephone with somebody I'd been following up with for about, a year or whatever. And he never responds to anything. And so I just picked up the phone and I got him. It was crazy. And he said, the truth is we've been thinking about having you for a long time. You called at the exact right time. Send me a proposal. And we put it together, and I'm on the agenda for March. So like a follow-up system, follow-up to me is about remaining visible. And just because people don't respond doesn't mean they're not reading or looking at your stuff. And you've got to realize I'm getting people comfortable with me. I'm getting them knowing the level of value I could bring to the table. So I do it with everybody immediately. I'm like a Barnacle. You are never getting rid of me.
I love that. So the second piece of this system then is going to be making this repeatable. Because if I meet 100 people over the course of a year, but I'm only consistently follow up with 1 or 2, think of how much revenue I might have left on the table, especially if they're all potential qualified buyers or referral partners. So how do you make sure that your follow-up system is repeatable? Where does that live in a place that you outside your head? Because like you said, it's already busy this year. I got 1,800 people I need to follow up with. I can't remember the next step with all of them. What do you do to make sure that your follow-up system is repeatable?
Yeah, so first, everything goes into my customer relationship management system. I happen to use Zoho One so that so that it goes and everything is recorded and everything lives there. The other piece of that is the fact that it's measured out so that all those leads aren't coming to me all at once. The other is that I divide people into the traditional A, B, and C. So A's are going to get more follow-ups. B's are going to get about half that, and C's I'm probably going to stay in touch with twice a year. My goal is to ultimately move my C's to my B's to my A's, and my A's to land business from. So my clients, based on my own filters, they get an A, a B, or a C. I think that's so key because don't kid yourself that a C is an A because you're wasting your time. My C's, I don't need to stay in touch with them more than twice a year because I'm probably not going to, I got a lot of work to do to land that business.
Right.
Yeah.
All of the A's need my attention.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the trigger mechanism. As soon as I've met somebody, this follow-up system comes into play. Always own the next step. I know that's something you believe in. The repeatable bit, it lives in your CRM. So it's a process flow that's outside of that. I is that it's improvable. And so how do you improve your follow-up system year to year? Because I imagine it doesn't look the same as it did 5 years ago.
No, gosh, in fact, it looks so different than it did 5 years ago. When I started it, it was just a drip on people, just send stuff out, right? Now I work a very defined 70-30 split. 70% of my follow-up system is value add. 30% is me asking for the business. Now, I know that percentage works because when you ask me about improvement, again, let's go back to December. In December, before I ever start putting my new drip campaign into place, I analyze my old drip campaign. What really worked in 2020? What business did I land? What business did I not? What leads need to come off of here? What leads need to stay on? What content really got opened and got response to? What was kind of a waste or an idea? So it's constantly in a review process I kind of clean it throughout the year, every quarter, but the big dump and the big look at it is in December when I review it and then clean it up before I put it into place the next year.
And you covered M, which is the last letter in this acronym trim already, in that it is measurable, right? You have to measure the results of these systems. Otherwise, you don't know if they work. You don't know how to improve them. And so what you're saying people should do is look at the systems that we have put into place, or if you don't have any, use it for a quarter. Take a look at what converted conversations, what converted business, and do more of that, right? Do more of what works. And so you take a look at all of your past, your send outs, your drip campaigns, whether it was a phone call, an email, a LinkedIn message, whatever it is. And you're saying that you look at how do I look at what did I do? How do I improve it? Because what worked? And so as a salesperson, what should I be looking at with all of the activity that I did conduct in 2020 to figure out what do I really need to be doing more of? Is it converted conversations? Is it sales? Walk us through that process.
So there are things that, basically that I measure, that I look at. Number one is how many leads turned into a conversation. Really, what were the things that got me in the door and actually got a person's attention and got me to be able to have a conversation with them? Then how many of those conversations turned into a proposal? How many of those proposals did I actually win? And I actually measure how many of those proposals did I actually lose. And the reason I want to know that is because if I don't lose enough proposals, I'm not pitching my price high enough.
Right.
And so, so basically that's what I keep a scorecard every month. I want to know. I also track my my reputation online. I track my follows on LinkedIn. I track my follows on Facebook. I want to know how many people are subscribing to Twitter. I want to know how my lead list is growing. So I measure those every single month. And then every month I'm tracking the number of sales calls I made, the number of sales follow-up calls I made, proposals I wrote, conversations I got, proposals I lost, and proposals I won. And then ultimate revenue for the month. Because winning proposals isn't very good if it's not pitching proposals at the right revenue.
Right. There's no margin in it. Absolutely. I love it. So for all the viewers, all the listeners, if you can't tell already, Meridith has her systems dialed in. I've learned a lot from her, and she's one of the people I respect highest in the industry for exactly that reason. So Meridith, tell us, how can we get deeper into your world, into your content, into your LinkedIn stuff? Tell us, where do we find more of Meridith?
Yeah, well, that would be great. First of all, I do want to say, I am not if I can do systems and processes, anybody can do systems.
There you go.
I was not born this way. But you can find out more about me at my website, which is just valuespeaker.com, the words valuespeaker.com. You'll see a purple bar at the top of my website called Emerge Successful. If you click that, it is full of free tools and resources to help you turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. I also like to invite people to take my quiz, which you just text the word redefined, just the word redefined, to 66866. And it's to find out where you fall on the Thrive indicator scale. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the place I live more than any place else.
And then you've got some things on LinkedIn that are doing quite well. Would you like to speak for a couple seconds on those?
Yeah, so thank you so much. So I am part of two podcasts that we do as LinkedIn Live shows. One is my Thriving in Uncertainty podcast, where we have guests every week to talk about what you need to be doing to really turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. And then Mark Hunter and I do a Sales Logic podcast, where we actually talk about what you need to be doing to rock your sales process in 2021.
And if I could pull up it on my iPhone right now, you'd see that's one of the ones I'm subscribed to. I love listening to the two of you, which is why I wanted to make sure you two were the first guests this year. So keep up the great work, please. We love listening to that. So for everybody that got to tune in, just thank you very much for making time for it. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube for those live streams. And definitely check out this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. And of course, for more sales systems, you can head right over to the free resources we have at www.bulletproofselling.systems. Sean Rhodes here. It's been a pleasure serving you today. So let's go out there. Let's make selling bulletproof. Thank you so much for your time today, Meridith.
Thank you.